All right, let's talk about volleyball. Lucas, I know that you're a big volleyball player. You've been playing for many years. You never went pro, but I think you're a very competitive player, right? So we've got something going on with I think the player that's on the screen is Brooke. What's going on here? Fill us in on the details.
People paid me not to play, Grant. That's how damn good I was.
No way, really? Like you were approached to play pro, and they're like, "No, here's money not to play."
No, I would try to walk on with teams, and they would give me $5 and tell me to go buy a margarita and leave them alone.
Nice.
But no, I did actually. I played a lot of volleyball for many years, and I played indoor. I later played sand. Um,
And you coached for a while too, right? Didn't you?
yeah, I coached. I coached a lot. I coached both sand and indoor. Um, I coached the University of Texas men's club team, which was a lot of time, but actually a lot of fun. And I coached a lot of private lessons. I coached, so yeah, I have a let us just say I have an obsession with volleyball, and I watched the
A storied history with it, maybe, right?
a storied history, yes, and I miss volleyball, but I've gotten older. I've lived in areas for the last several years that um, in which I cannot play as much volleyball as I wish. But also, you get older. It's good to have many interests, and at some point in my life, I I sort of wandered away from volleyball, but I
So in
especially
volleyball, you can't hang up your cleats. What do you do in volleyball? You deflate the ball or something? Like what do you
you actually burn your knee pads. You
burn your
burn,
knee pads? Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's the only time that they smell worse than regular. Actually, I never wore knee pads. I don't believe in it.
Well, in
I
sand, you don't wear knee pads, right? You just take the sand burn.
Yeah, yeah. I don't wear knee pads. I never no sand socks. None of those crutches. No, I had a great coach. I had a great coach when I was playing indoor in college, who was a former member of the national team, and he was like, "My players will not wear knee pads." So I learned to jump and to land without my knees ever touching the floor. And if there are any volleyball players out there, I would tell them learn how to play without knee pads. Actually, save your knees a lot. Teach you better technique. Um, but yeah, so I watch a lot of volleyball, and I always keep my eye on the sport. And there has been a brewing issue in women's in the women's NCAA volleyball world this year, and that issue is about a trans player who is playing the for San Jose State University, which is a D1 school in the Mountain West Conference in San Jose, California. San Jose is right outside of San Francisco, and I thought there are several issues that are interesting that are percolating around this. I guess let me break it down really quickly. The person that we're looking at right here is Brooke Slusser. Brooke is the setter for San Jose State, and it was through a lawsuit that she filed against San Jose State University that the other players and the other teams in the Mountain West Conference in the NCAA, the public largely, became aware of this trans player that was playing for San Jose State. And that's one of the greatest issues that I have with this.
There was no disclosure. They didn't actually come clean on it. They didn't say anything about it. Just quietly did it.
Yeah, and that was the basis, or at the base of Slusser's complaints against the university. She had been rooming with the trans player, and neither the university nor the coach had told any of the players or the team that the player was trans, and and Brooke Slusser was surprised to find this out. And I think it's also important to understand, this is the third year that this player has been on the team. So this wasn't a new recruit that just came onto the team and had been there for a couple of weeks or maybe a month playing for the team. This is after 3 years or 2.5 years of play that this story begins to unfold. And there are if you start looking it up on X, you're going to see some comments about the physicality, the safety of the players, and that certainly plays into the conversation of in the lawsuits that have been brought forth, concerns about the safety of the female players. I think we should remember that this player played in NCAA Division I volleyball for 2 years, and we didn't hear a peep about that. So maybe there were concerns.
So this isn't a safety issue. This isn't hearkening to what somebody got the ball spiked in their face or something like that. Not that
Well, I mean, it may have happened, but those, the volleyball is not a softball or a baseball. I've been hit in the face several times, and I've seen I've seen injuries. Moreover, the injuries come from uncoordinated players at the net. Those to me are the most concerning of injuries from rolled ankles, etc., that happen in volleyball. In volleyball,
like you're hurting yourself. You're like not that good, and you
hurt other people because people step under the net. Uncoordinated people cross the center line, and even when you're moving along the net next to a middle blocker, an outside hitter, and they stumble and fall, and then you step on their foot, you end up rolling your ankle. So I just think that we need to bear in mind, one, that there is some sort of element of risk of physical injury, and let's not play up the speed of the attack too much, because the volleyball, I think that just misses other points, and not only that this player played for several years without this being raised as a concern, but also that when you get outside of the NCAA and other leagues, it's quite often that men and women play together, and there are differences in raising the height of the net. But I have played, of course, I played, and I coached top, I coached like professional and open level players, but I've played a lot on a women's net, and I've known many women who could hit incredibly hard. It almost becomes more difficult for men to pass on a women's net because they have darn good float serves, put it that way. So going back to what's been happening here, I think that we need to bear in mind this player has been on for a couple of years, and this is going to be, I think, an issue that is not so isolated, because the volleyball is a very popular sport with men and women. Part of the problem that I think that also exists here is we don't see a lot of men's teams at the collegiate level, and
what's the answer there? I'm curious. Like, is it because it's not that popular, or I mean, there's a lot of men's sports, so like it's very rare to actually find that there's sports that are
so it actually
women only, right?
well, it actually goes to Title IX requirements and football teams, and Title IX requirements for an equal number of men's and women's scholarships. And so the reason that you don't see put it this way, the reason that you see, say, more softball teams, soccer teams, I mean, Texas A&M has like women's archery, women's cross country shooting, and all these sports for women and none for men. And that has everything to do with adding sports for women, so they have more scholarships to give out for more female sports, and then they can have a 100 deep roster with scholarship athletes for the football team. And part of the reason that football is
Well,
actually,
this has been part of what people have talked about at the college level is what football drives everything, right?
I mean, football does drive everything. And why does football drive everything? Well, because largely in part due to the amount of money that football makes. So whenever schools can pack a stadium full of 120, 150,000 people, and also be making money on the television rights for those, it's actually all about the money. I mean, we can also look at the paychecks that some of these D1 football coaches get, as opposed to what even the president of the university gets. And the most well-paid public employee, even to the governor of many states, happens to be the football coach of the flagship public university. So I think those are some of the deeper problems that exist in collegiate sports. And we've also seen, I don't know, more concern about public education, the price of public education, the price of schools, what schools are teaching. I think some of these things are inherent whenever you have students that are going to a school, say, to have privileged access to a couple of football games and soccer games, and are more concerned about the athletic prowess of the of the athletic division of the school than what they're actually learning in class. To me, that is kind of crazy, kind of, maybe kind of not crazy. Maybe we should have an expectation that everybody is playing in more sports. But anyway, this is the reason that we don't see many men's volleyball teams, and those that we do see, in California, or in smaller private schools, has to do with the fact that they don't put a lot of emphasis, or possibly don't have a men's football team. But one thing that we're seeing in this conversation about the argument over having a trans player playing on the women's team is a person's right to play in the sport. And I 100% agree with that. I think that playing sports is a benefit to everybody who throws their hat in the ring. But I think we should maybe be broadening our uh, broadening our view as to what is possible, and maybe thinking about, if a trans player's right to play on a men's team, because there are, in Brooke Slusser's case filing against the state and complaint about having a trans player on, which I tried to find a link to it. I couldn't find it. I had it earlier this year.
To
I
the
read
actual
it.
lawsuit itself.
Yeah, because when I first heard about this, I actually found the lawsuit, and I was interested in what the complaints were, and I noticed that part of the complaints actually go into the physicality. And one thing that very apparent to anybody who plays volleyball, men usually have a better jump, and this actually goes to the um to the width of our hips. Why do women have so many more knee and ankle injuries? Well, it's because they have wider hips, and they have greater they have a greater, like, angle of incidence and stress that's put on their knees and their ankles. And why do they have wider hips? Because their bodies are designed to carry other bodies during pregnancy. So, and this also impacts their ability to jump. Men and women both actually can carry testosterone, and women can have some, like, amazing, whips to their swings, and the ability uh, to hit a volleyball with a lot of pace. So, part of the defense of trans athletes is that they are on testosterone suppressants, but I don't think that we can get around the physical structure of the body, the bone structure, and I don't know that being on testosterone suppressants makes a change there. But I do believe everyone should have the ability to play. I also don't understand why the concept of co-ed sports hasn't entered into the conversation, because on a more broad level, when we get outside of schools and we get outside of the NCAA, a lot of the places that one would go play in a city league or a national league, USAV, or anywhere else, you usually have the option of playing open or co-ed. And there are also changes that sometimes people make in the rules of volleyball, say like a men's players, if on a women net, can only attack from the back row, or sometimes the net is raised a couple of inches halfway between the men's and women's heights, to so the men have to, I don't know, to so you still have to hit over a little bit higher net. Um,
I found the lawsuit. Here we go. So this is Brooke Slusser et al. Versus Mountain West Conference.
yeah, so because of
And
the
actually this had movement yesterday. Like I don't like look at this date stamp on here. So 11/25. So very timely.
well, and there was a decision that was issued yesterday. I think actually this is part of a second lawsuit, because this one is probably, yeah, this is versus the Mountain West Conference. Brooke Slusser in another lawsuit that was against her school was where we first found out about this issue. And this is also the greatest. uh, the part that really took me aback in this was that this was a big secret, and I'm not sure that the trans player and the university shared with the volleyball team that the player was trans to begin with, but I know at some point the coaches were made aware of it and that they did not tell the team. And so part of Brooks Lesser's original complaint the was that there was a trans player on the team, and not only that, but she was rooming with the trans player, and the coaches nor this university never bothered to tell her about that. And um, that I
Yeah,
don't I
because
don't
part of any lawsuit is standing, right? So you usually have to be a party to the situation, and you have to have some sort of a there's something that was done that was wrong. I was wronged somehow, and I want redress. So has any of that been established? Like, what is
well
the wrong here, and what's the redress she's seeking?
well, and so I think that she does have standing, but that's actually what was giving me pause. I don't know what harm has been shown, but we don't have, or one at one time, universities, it was very rare to see a co-ed dorm. Sometimes you would see a co-ed dorm that was men on one floor, women on another. When I went to university, there were both male only dorms, female only dorms, and there were co-ed dorms. The co-ed dorms were co-ed by floor, but there, the notion of boys and girls who were not married or in a physical relationship was very rare at
Well,
one time.
here I think we've got something here. So when I was reading through this, and I'm trying to catch up quickly here, but we've got Gaines et al. Versus the NCAA, and Brooks Slusser was a member of the putative class, so maybe that's why it was a little bit hard to find the original NCAA one because it wasn't Brooke that brought that one. Maybe does that sound right?
Well, and see here, this is where they're trying to show harm with regards to with the physicality of a male or former male hitting the ball. And I think that in reality, the concerns or the fears are with regards to personal space or expectations of I don't know, some sort of uh, some sort of ubiquity in shared spaces between the sexes. So this to me is an issue
Oh, I
that
think I sussed out part of the harm here is that somebody else lost their scholarship to the transgender player, and that they
I'm
said that
that's like do do players who lose, if two women are vying for a spot on the team and one loses her scholarship to another, can the player that lost her scholarship turn around and
if the one doesn't meet the requirements for the scholarship, and that being that they are a female,
yeah, and I think
maybe that's I think probably at the heart of the matter here.
well, but part of the going to the discussion of inclusion of trans athletes also ignores this reality about NCAA sports, and there are a
Well,
whole bunch of people.
because this isn't a co-ed team, so these scholarships are not like there is a
Well, I
differentiation.
mean, even just take it to like within the sexes. There are intramural sports, and even on the intramural sports teams, not everybody gets to play. And I wish it was the case that everybody got to play, but that comes to our notion in and even high schools of physical education. And anyone who is in the field of coaching begins to understand this problem. And there, I wish that everybody could get to play. I try to coach everybody who wants to play, um, but but not everybody gets to play. And so for them to be showing that as harm, I'm a bit dubious about that. And
I'm sympathetic to this one as far as it's established that if you have a requirement for a scholarship, and that being that you're female, and these things being established far before we had these ideas that you could identify as female, like that this is what we're deciding
well,
in the courts right now, right? I mean, this is what
well,
we're
and
doing.
this, I mean, this actually comes back to I think problems that we see in Title IX with the metrics that they use for um that there be the same number of men's and women's scholarship, or the same amount of money that goes to men's or women's scholarship. um I don't know. um but there are other aspects. Let's talk about, because we've reached the end of the regular season. What happened in the regular season? Once Slusser came out with with this case against San Diego State and her coaches, the other teams became aware that there was a trans player on the San Jose State team, and they forfeited their games against San Jose State. So I'm not sure what the number is at now. It was at one time 7. It may be 9. I think that they did play a game early on in the season against one of the members of their conference. But since this information has come out about a trans player on the team, most of the other teams have forfeited. And the case that you're looking at comes in the wake of those forfeitures, because now we're moving into the NCAA bracket, and the other teams are asking that San Jose not be considered as the winner of the Mountain West Conference. There's an argument in there about the gate fees. San Jose says that they have been harmed because they were expecting this amount of revenue from people coming to watch their games, and because the other teams didn't bother to show up and play. So we get to this discussion about what it's all about, and that's actually playing games. It's about putting on a show for the fans. It's like players, they may argue in a court case, and the money may be important for them to go play, but I can guarantee you that most players who are playing dreamed about playing NCAA volleyball. They relish playing it at the game at a very high level, and all of a sudden that's not happening because there's this dispute over a player. And if you actually get into some of the things that have been happening with those teams, it gets even more interesting. For instance, the University of Wyoming, the players voted on it and the players wanted to play, but the coaches wouldn't let them play. And the reason that the coaches wouldn't let them play was because the political powers that be in the state of Wyoming did not want the Wyoming women's volleyball team to play against a trans player. And so members of the legislature of Wyoming called the school and said, if Wyoming plays against San Jose State, this is a political no-go, and this will affect the funding of your university. So isn't that interesting?
Quite the fight shaping up, and no surprise that this all seems to have some tie to funding, money, and whatever. I mean, this is, I guess, a lot of things in life kind of boil down to this stuff. But it's interesting that they wouldn't allow for the players to make a decision themselves. That seems like some path that might be taken here, as far as, you know, whether this is desirable to have some sort of a vote take place. You're saying that a vote did take place and they ignored it.
Absolutely. And that, I think, is where the NCAA needs to make some big progress going forward. And the NCAA and sports in general, you know, because when I see when I see this conflict over trans players, it also brings me to mind of steroids in sports. Because, you know, how different is it to alter your body by suppressing your testosterone, or to alter your body by increasing your ability to your body's ability to recover more quickly, Winstrol, or um, to I don't know, blood doping. You know, how different is this than blood doping in cycling and other.
I think a lot of it comes down to disclosure and having clear rules and making sure that everybody follows the rules in a consistent way. And there's always going to be cheaters, people that are trying to skirt the rules or gain an advantage. I mean, when money's on the line and there's things to be had, having a little advantage goes a long way. And then there's other issues that come up too, because you can say, well, a certain substance is banned, you can't do this. But then, well, what about a precursor that metabolizes into the thing? There's all these really esoteric, weird things that can come up.
Yeah, you're banging my drum there. It should be one about disclosure, and this to me is where San Jose went wrong to begin with. One, there was no disclosure, and there can be arguments made about the privacy of a player, but we're talking about a volleyball team. There are a limited number of people that get on. Not everybody gets on, and so one, there's disclosure. Two, I think that we should be putting more faith or power in the hands of athletes. You know, right now the power is in the hands of the administrators, and maybe that's well and good in an academic university, in a public academic university where funds are subsidized. But we've gotten a long way from that paradigm of our scholastic setting. And now on top of that, a lot of these athletes can be paid, and not only can be paid, but also have can have not just paid by the university, but can have you know, promotional contracts. Um, they can sell coffee and you know, take
That's been one of the big changes, I think, in college sports, is when they started to say that the athletes could get these you know, additional monies, revenues, sponsorships, whatever. I mean, it started to just substantially change the entire nature of it. Not that dissimilar to when politics allowed money in from, you know, Citizens United. These things are all kind of tied together. When money starts chasing something like this, it starts to make things significantly more skewed towards cheating and using advantages, because now there's real money on the line here. It starts to elevate the level of rewards significantly.
Absolutely. And if they're going to be paid, you could, well, it is what it is. But if the athletes are being paid, if there's so much money that's being generated by the athletics of a school, then why are we limited in the numbers or the types of competition? There's women's sand volleyball now. Yay, there should be men's and women's sand volleyball. Maybe part of what needs to a change that can be made is the restriction that's made with regards to scholarships, or maybe it's time to get rid of scholarships altogether. Uh, um, I don't know, but the other thing that you brought up was an athlete's choice with regards to what is or is not okay with regards to modifying bodies, because we can also look to, say, the Olympics or the Olympic Committee and some of their rules with regards to prohibited drugs, and we know that they are incredibly drastic. Some track stars say, I took a cold suppressant or something with pseudoephedrine and I was barred from competition. And I'm not sure that most of the athletes would
And then you've got the more extreme where what some athletes are saying, they do full blood replacement before they start a game or something, and they get an advantage because they have fresh oxygenated blood. Just like, there's crazy stuff that's available now.
well, and some players, like some people who are devoted to a sport might say, okay, that's fine. If you want to make that choice, if you want to take a chance with cancer or whatever the other adverse effects are with testosterone, I'm here for a higher level of play. I am a devotee to a sport, and
Isn't there like a new Olympics that actually says, let's bring on the cyborg enhancements, whatever you want to do, bring it on, like whatever you can do to bring your A game and
I haven't heard of it,
quality,
but
eh?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think there is. Let me see if I can find it, but I'm pretty sure something like that is actually in the works or has already been launched.
That sounds like mixed martial arts meets the Olympics, and that'd be a lot of fun. It's probably sponsored by Red Bull.
It's sponsored by some kind of a performance enhancement drug company.
Yeah. Red Bull, or I oh I can't even think of what those disgusting drinks are anymore. Not disgusting. Some people love them, but anyway, well, this, part of also another issue that I was blown away by was the notion that the solution was going to be found by a federal judge. Yeah, so these players and these teams get together to file a lawsuit, going into the NCAA tournament, like a federal judge is going to solve this issue. And we've talked about the political nature of judges and their eye on their decisions. In a case like this, what is one person going to do to change the way things are? So the ruling came out yesterday, as you saw, and the ruling was upheld for San Diego State. So
Here's your thing. It's called the enhanced game. So yep, it's happening. And the article is from a year ago, so it's probably moved along, but definitely this thing is in the works or happening.
interesting. I hope that in the enhanced games it is included that the athletes have to declare what their enhancements are. Because I actually, some of the problems that we have is the secrecy with enhancements. And I think a case, athletes who are all natural, or who aren't taking enhancements, are generally very proud about that. But it's not easily, especially in a league that's not doing dope testing, and where there's money on the line. Um, those people who are enhancing themselves aren't going to declare it. But it would be interesting if everything was allowed, but you had to declare it, or it was actually declared. And it would be interesting to see who the heroes were in because I think those players that were not using enhancements and yet rose to the top, or maybe even were a second or a third, I wonder if they would have an outsized appeal to the audience because of their lack of enhancements. I don't know. Could be wrong about
Oh,
that.
like now there's the ultimate test of skill. Can you go into the enhanced games and compete unenhanced and still win? That's like a +5 to your
I
rating or something.
I think that would ultimately be the goal because a lot of high level athletes who and some who are accused of using enhancements, they are disgusted and uh, uh, I mean, I knew many high level athletes who were accused of using enhancements, and they were like, "No, you don't understand. I live. I devote my life to making my body a tool that has this special purpose, hitting a volleyball, um, or or other things." So I actually think it would be good for all sports if if at the very least the athletes got to declare what was banned and what was admissible, a- and that everything be known to the participants of the sport. So um so anyway, we're headed into the NCAA's. You could see this becoming a larger issue if San Jose goes on quite a run deep into the NCAA's, but um I'm saddened to see several, like an
Well, how
entire
do you well, here, let's since we only got a few minutes left, let's talk about where you think this is gonna go. So you've had experience in volleyball, and we've talked about co-ed, whether men should be there, how this could actually play out. How do you see this actually shaping up? Do you think that they're gonna get standing? Is she gonna get kicked off the team? Like, where do you see this going? Like, give us your prediction on this one.
well, I she
Or if
may
you don't have a prediction, let me give you an alternate take. How would you like to see this resolved? Like, is it okay for Brooke Slusser to have to play with I didn't even catch the name of the person who Fleming is it okay for Fleming to be on the team here? What's your take on this?
So I guess I'll answer both of those questions. One, as far as predictions, is what the NCAA is going to do. I'd say probably as little as possible. Um, but I think the issue is going to come up again and again.
But the status quo can't just sit. I mean, she's raised the issue. There's a lawsuit. There's something's going to happen here, right? I mean, it isn't just they can't go back to just pretending like this isn't existing. Like that something is going to resolve in this lawsuit. Either they're going to be found that this is okay for them to be there, or they're going to say no, you can't. And definitely, the political wind is swinging in a particular direction. We've talked a lot about the political nature of the court, so I think that given what just happened with the elections, that this is on the chopping block. Like the current administration is coming for these players. I think.
Well, in that regard, I think it's important to consider what happened in Wyoming and the political pressure that came from the state legislatures with regards to funding a public university, and how this is playing out in the broader political context. Um, I don't know. There was a time whenever I would have never thought that the NCAA would allow their players to be paid. I don't think it's a bad thing to allow players to be paid. I think that a lot of players were being paid under the table already. I think that the association with public universities is more the problem. So maybe some of the answer is breaking off these franchises, breaking them away from our concepts or associations with public universities. Because I also think that having academic requirements, and some gifted people do not get to play in the professional league and into what feeds into a larger professional league, is also incredibly unfair for those people.
I
So
think I think we are going to see some of this stuff shift because with the nature of how technology is moving along, and with the idea that maybe having these centralized institutions where people go to learn particular things is not necessarily the most modern way of doing things. It certainly is possible for a substantive amount of things to be learned at home. I mean, you take any random activity that you might need to do around the house, and there's probably already a YouTube video that's been shot that shows you exactly how to do whatever you need to do. You can follow the steps. So as far as people acquiring skills or learning knowledge that's needed within the world, I mean, this is starting to radically change. I'd be shocked if in the next 15 years the majority of what's happening at these large institutions isn't just sporting. I mean, what else is there? Like, you don't need to come together in a centralized place except to play a sport. I mean, because you can't play a sport from home, you can't play a sport online. I mean, barring esports and whatever, but like, you're not going to play volleyball from your couch.
well, there's also there's that. And I think that we also have this narrative of, oh, you got to go to a good school and get good jobs, but we begin to understand that you can get the
That's
best.
that's out the window already. I mean, that's already well past. We're
Well,
beyond that.
but yeah, the
These are
real
these are fraternities and social clubs. This is where you go to meet people.
100%, and at least we've laid bare that. Now we have to address those associations. I mean, look at the outsized influence of Harvard and MIT on United States policy. Um, and so those, I think, are political entanglements that are a problem, and again are we need to begin to sort out. But I think as far as the nature of sports and their relationship with our with youth, and with having leagues, and a professional league and a broad franchise, I think that only grows. And you all, because we look at what's happening with the way that we consume those. Part of the growth and the outsized influence of football used to be that a couple of universities had contracts to be broadcast on the very few channels that were broadcast around the nation. And look at what the realignment that happened with the conferences, as they begin to have the ability to have their own channel that broadcasts that out. Well, now we look at the Rumble and YouTube effects that happen with these smaller sports. Like, they can be broadcast to their smaller audience, can reach a wider range of people. And I think that we're going to see schools open up and begin to use that more. I don't think that paywalls are the answer, but having a large support, I think that they should, I'll put it this way. I think that schools should be, maybe leaning less on reliance for scholarships, and leaning more towards the paid athletes that come from sponsors, banks, car dealerships, whatever it may be, shoe companies, drink companies, whatever it may be, and the school using their platform to get these athletes into a larger number of eyes. And that's where I think they would have the most success, because they could be increasing the number of sports that they have on their plate, the number of athletes that they have, um, and the number of people who consume the brand. So that's where I think ultimately it will go to.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we didn't see a massive expansion in sporting activities at these centralized universities, and that being the thing that they morph into in the longer term, like stopping this idea that they're at all institutions of higher learning and they're just essentially either pro feeders, or they're becoming like the top tier of a lot of sports. I mean, I think that that's kind of where we're at. There isn't really a place to graduate to. This is the pinnacle, but it might be that this is what some of these institutions morph into as we start to see a lot more learning just becoming tailored towards what's needed, and AI starting to eat a substantive portion of what people used to do, and we just have to keep quickly skating into whatever it is that humanity is doing, and
Well,
allowing that more
and
decentralized learning.
I think there's some sort of aspect of our expectations of the proof of work that citizens put in, and there used to be a couple of tracks of your parents are going to kick you out of the house whenever you're 18 years old, and you got to get a job and pay for your own house.
That's already over. That already
Yeah,
ended.
so that's already over, but we have both this
We're
narrative.
moving back towards like a tribal thing where it's like you just live with the tribe. So you're born into the tribe, you sort of just live within the locus of
Well,
whoever
and
had
it
the Bitcoin, whenever they got it back in the olden days.
and I mean, I think that's an improvement in some ways, and I think it's also an improvement for kids to get to I mentioned earlier there was a time whenever you yeah, I mean, remember Three's Company and how like mind blowing it was that there was a man that lived with two women that
Three's
don't you
yes, I do remember Three's Coffee. We're gonna have to do like a full segment one of these days just on Nick at Night and our shared television history. But
I didn't know that was Nick at Night, but of
oh
course.
yeah, for sure it was. Like that's definitely where you saw it.
Well, and Don Knotts, gotta love Don Knotts. But anyway, so now I think it is a wonderful thing for people to move out, like find a couple of roommates and get to learn how other people live. Get it's a great thing to have a family and people that you know and trust and that you grow up with, but it's also a good thing to share a living experience with people who have who want to do the same things. Maybe that's go out and party a little bit, but it's a really awesome thing if you live with a bunch of people who are, say, obsessed with volleyball or obsessed with soccer, and you wake up and you go do something every day. I've talked a little bit about the history of sports too, with regards to um, the Mayan religion. Where do all these sports come from? They're a metaphor for hunting. They are literally a lost religion that existed in the Americas before.
Or even football being like some kind of a stand-in for war. I mean that's it. It sure feels a lot
Well,
like. I mean, you've got the formations. You have like this shared
I is
goal.
it
You've got
is it
ceremonies.
war, or is it protecting the baby from a pack of wolves?
I think it's war. I mean, like it looks more like formations to me. Like this is how the Roman legions would line up and whatever, and you would have these pushing against each other and stabbing each other and tackling and whatever. Like this to me feels like a war stand-in. But we're gonna just get ourselves into a into the wrong spot at the end of the show. So any
Yeah, yeah.
final
This
thoughts? Yeah.
yeah. This is but as
Sports,
far as
sports as a metaphor for many things in life. That might be its own show.
it is. Well, I would love to have that conversation. But just going also to the change in our academic institutions, I think there is, finally there. So FDR in the time in the Great Depression, he created the b- the WPA to get youth out of cities, to give them something to do. Why? Because he was worried about mobs and violence in the cities, because there were so many people who were out of a job. And so his advisor said, well, if you're going to take care of that, we need to give all of these young people something to do. I don't think that was a bad idea. And I think that our expectations that a 20-year-old is going to stumble into a career that they want to do for the rest of their life is absurd. So I think that we should be looking to fill our civilization with options, like going and working in forests and building public works projects, or playing in sports leagues. And we don't have to. We're not limited to 10 teams across the nation, in football, in volleyball, in anything else. People like to go and watch them. We should understand that we are feeding an audience, and that is an important part of the experience and things that we want to share. So that's where I hope the NCAA and the institutions look to. I think I could continue to go on, but that's what I hope that we see, maybe, in short.
All right. Well, we'll see you on the next FOMO.
All right. Thanks for letting me talk about volleyball all day today. Enjoyed it.